Hey guys, it's Lauren from Lauren Leslie Studio, and today I just want to kind of talk about my story a little bit and how I got started as a designer. I've been a designer for over 10 years now, and it's kind of funny to think back and think about, just the journey and the path that I've gone down because it's really been kind of unexpected and not something that I think you can really have totally planned out. So ever since I was a little girl, I've loved to draw, color. I mean, I was always obsessed with art. Anytime, once I got to middle school, high school, anytime I had, the option for an elective, then I always chose like whatever art class I could take. Like it was just a no-brainer. Like some people don't really know what they like or what they want to do, and they have to try different things, but that was always like my favorite. So when I went to college, I knew that I wanted to be an art major. I didn't really have to think about it. It was just like, yes, that's what I'm doing. That's what I enjoy. And, I'll kind of figure it out as I go. So when you're in college and, your parents' friends and all these adults are like kind of making small talk with you and they're like, oh, well, like, what are you going to do? Are you going to teach? Like, basically, like, what are you going to do with an art degree? And my answer was just always like, no, like I really don't want to be a school teacher, basically. That just wasn't my passion. That's not what I really saw myself doing. Like I wanted to be a part of this world, like be in this game. And like I didn't really know exactly what that looked like, but I knew that just because I was, a woman or just because I was getting an art degree didn't mean that, I had to be kind of like cornered into this little niche or whatever. Um, and my dream school was to go to SCAD. Like I was like, that would be amazing. Like I'm from South Carolina, SCAD's in Georgia, so it would have been out of state for me. And it was just way too expensive. Thankfully, my mom was like, no, like you can't go there because otherwise I would. As a high school student, you don't know how expensive it is. Like you don't, to me, like $50 was expensive. So how the hell am I supposed to know if, which tuition is affordable and which is cheap? Like those are just like random numbers to me. So I went in state to a liberal arts college and I majored in studio art with a concentration in oil painting. And I loved my time there. I had an awesome senior show. I put together a collection and it was great. And it really wasn't until the month I was graduating where I was like, okay, like what the hell am I going to do with this? Like who's going to hire me? I either, like there's this fork in the road, like I either need to go to grad school, but that kind of felt like, oh, I'm going to grad school because I don't know what else to do. It was still like, okay, well then what do I do after grad school? Like, do I become a professor? It was just, that seemed a little bit vague to me. Or the other route was to go the commercial route, do graphic design. And I really didn't want to do graphic design. I had one graphic design class in college and I fucking hated it. I hated it. I was used to being hands-on, like being in the materials, like with my paints, like mixing paints in front of me and then using the palette knife and like slapping it on the canvas and getting lots of texture and, just being in that process. Like the idea of just sitting at a computer all day just seems so boring and horrible and not creative at all. And in my graphic design class in college, I just think the assignments, they're so generic, which is fine because that's what graphic design 101 is. Like you can't appeal to everyone. But, it's like, oh, make a logo for this corporate identity and like all this branding stuff. And that just wasn't me. That was such a far cry from being like a little bit more self-expressive, doing, portraits or whatever, some conceptual work that I was doing in fine art. But I was like, I'm not going to take out more student loans. Like, that's just crazy. So, well, I did take out some student loans, but it was like so small compared to what grad school would have been. So I took a few more graphic design classes. I did that for a year online, and then I was a nanny for a year, which was great. And, you know, I did these courses on my own, online, but again, it was like I was working full time. It was stuff I did at night after work. So I was just kind of trying to like zoom through it and get it done and like get the degree so that someone would hire me as a graphic designer. And I was hired as a graphic designer for a very small t-shirt company in Spartanburg, South Carolina. And it was a great first job. It really was. I learned so much. But I mean, I'll tell you, like, I got that job and I was confident in myself to figure it out. Like, I had worked since I was 15, so I was like, okay, like, I've always been able to figure out whatever I'm doing, so, you know, I was confident in my ability with that. But I still kind of felt like, oh, like, I don't really know what I'm doing. Like, I've been through all this school. I've, you know, paid so much money for this tuition, and now I have a small student loan. And I still kind of feel like I don't really know how to use Photoshop or Illustrator that well. I mean, I knew the basics, but like now I have a job and like I have to serve these clients and I don't know. So I guess my point is that you learn by doing, guys. And I learned 90% of what I know about design from working. No one cares which school you went to. So please, for the love of God, do not go to an expensive art school. It is not worth it, guys. It's really, really, really not. Student debt, when you're 18, you don't understand how crippling student debt can be. And I've seen it with my friends, like people that like are on the brink of survival, or they can't like do normal things such as like buy a house or start a business or even really have a, you know, healthy savings account because they're paying so much in student debt for so long, and that interest will get you too. So it's pretty brutal. If you can avoid paying a lot for school, do it. Like, avoid it. Like, go to the cheapest school you can, because I'm telling you, it does not matter. Whatever you want to do with your life, you're going to figure out by experimenting and by working and trying things. You have to try things. So I didn't really like my graphic design class, but I was like, well, I'm not going to take out $100,000 in student loans for grad school. And then, you know, maybe if I was going to be a neurosurgeon, that would be okay because I would get paid back for that. Because, you know, the salaries are really good. But as an artist, like, no, like that's not happening for you. Like, unless it's like, you know, making it in Hollywood, like, unless you're going to be a famous artist, which, okay, like everyone sure would love to be that, but it's just not realistic for most people. So anyway, go to the cheapest school that you can. And then just take jobs, you know, like if you want to be a designer, fucking like take, you know, do shit for free, like do things for free for people. You can get Photoshop or Illustrator for like, I don't know, like $10 or $15 a month, maybe like 30. But if you're a student, I think you can get a deal. Anyway, the point is, that's like nothing. That's chump change. And it doesn't cost that much to have the program. And just start doing stuff for free. And when you come to, you know, this project and you're like, I don't know how to do this, watch a YouTube video. Watch a YouTube video. You can learn how to do anything on the internet. It's out there, I promise. And then, you know, the more you're working and actually using these tools, then you're going to remember them. If you just sit there in class and like they teach you how to do something one time, you're going to be like, okay, I learned that. And then you never use it again. And then you forget. So it's like, well, what was that worth? You know, you have to be working in the program all the time to really learn it. And if you do things for free, like the client can't be mad at you if it sucks, right? Or if it takes longer, you know, they might have to come back to you and say, hey, like this color palette isn't really working, or can you change this, or can you change that? And you just have to be patient with it and take it as like, this is my school. Like, this is really my school. Like, if this is what I want to be doing. And then, you know, it was when I was working at the t-shirt company that I started to kind of be like, okay, like this is a great first job, but I really don't see myself doing this forever and ever and ever. Like, I I don't know, it was just like in your heart and in your mind, if you're wanting to kind of pursue something else. And I found myself really loving um, and being inspired by different things on Pinterest, and then kind of figuring out, well, who are these artists? Who are these illustrators? And like, how are they making money? Like, how are they doing it? Like, what's their deal? And a lot of them had Etsy shops at the time. And so in 2011, I started an Etsy shop. Now I was working full time, so this was just like a side hustle thing. And, being right out of school, I just threw up some paintings and drawings and was like, well, here it is, like someone will buy it. But, those weren't really as popular on Etsy. So then I had, people ask if I could do invitations. So I was like, okay, sure. So I started trying, some invitations, and I got a lot of sales with that on Etsy, but I was still working full time. This was just something like, like my little side hustle, extra money type of thing. So I found myself being attracted to more illustrative type of jobs. That makes sense. I was a fine artist, and I was like, wow, like this is something I can do. Like this is kind of combining my fine art background, and I'm still, able to draw and able to be creative, and it's kind of my style, if you will, and able to kind of marry that with, but it's for a client. This is a design. This isn't my self-expression necessarily, but I was kind of able to bring those two things together in a way that I really fell in love with. And so when I was looking to get a new job from the t-shirt company after being there for about 4 years, I was looking at jobs that were hiring illustrators, like greeting card or like stationery type of roles. And also I was looking at textile design positions because I was drawing a lot of patterns, and I realized that I really enjoy like pattern work and like doing these kind of abstract designs in my t-shirt designs. So I was like, okay, like that would be really awesome. Like, I think I'm going to apply for that. And so on top of working full time, having my Etsy shop, I worked every single night on my portfolio to, towards this direction that I wanted to go down. Okay, so every night I'm drawing and I'm doing invitations and I'm putting stationery designs together, and then I'm also drawing a lot of patterns, doing different color palettes. A lot of it was hand-drawn too, by the way. And I applied on LinkedIn with Surya, which is a wholesale rug company based in Calhoun, Georgia. Basically the middle of nowhere if you've never been. But, I interviewed, and the recruiter was like, hey, like, we really like you. I got the offer. It was a great offer compared to what I was making in South Carolina. And they were basically like, hey, like a lot of people commute from Atlanta. Like, we don't really expect you to move to Calhoun. But a lot of people commute from Atlanta, and it's about 45 minutes. It was more like an hour and 15 minutes in reality. But I just had that feeling like, I want this. Like, this is my chance. This is my opportunity. And I took the job, and I moved in with my aunt in Roswell for about 6 months. She very graciously hosted me. And then I got an apartment. I looked on Craigslist and moved in with a roommate I had never met before. Well, I met her before I actually moved in, but we met on Craigslist, and I moved in. And guys, I really kind of felt like I was starting from scratch. I did, because, I had this stable job in South Carolina, and South Carolina is so cheap that I was able to buy a townhouse. And, so I kind of had my own place. I had my own furniture, and, you start to sort of go down that path. But I realized, oh God, like, I can't see myself here forever, especially not at the t-shirt job. And there just really weren't a lot of companies in Spartanburg or Greenville at the time that I really wanted to work for. There are good design companies, don't get me wrong. It's just like, it wasn't the illustrative or like pattern-based work that I wanted to be doing. I really didn't want to get into branding. I really didn't want to get into like corporate identity or logos or that kind of thing. At least not for, in the very, I don't know, like there's just something that I'm not I don't want to be doing the very corporate stuff. So anyways, I packed up my shit, moved in with my aunt. I was sleeping on a twin bed. I was sharing a bathroom with my sister at the time. And I was driving like an hour and 15 minutes one way to work. It was a sacrifice, guys. But I was there for 5 years. I loved it. Like, I loved my job there. I loved designing rugs and pillows, and I learned so much. I learned so much. And, you know, I am now working for a different rug company, so I don't have the commute anymore, but I would have never gotten offered this job if I hadn't taken the first job and just learned everything I can. I've never taken a textile design class. I didn't know anything about rugs or how to design one when I joined the company, but look, you just have to try. Like, you have to take a leap and you have to nail the interview. Now, I absolutely prepared for the interview as much as I could, and tried to show work that would be relevant to that product. So you have to do that. But, you know, at the end of the day, you just have to try things and kind of see what you like. If someone told me in college, like, you're going to be a rug designer, I would be like, what? That doesn't even make sense. Like, don't people in like India or Iran design rugs? Like, who designs rugs? I wouldn't have never known. Like, eyes are opened. Like, I love it. It's great. And now I work for a company that does private label for big retailers such as like Pottery Barn, West Elm, Target, like the list goes on, which is cool. And I still have my Etsy shop. I do a lot of like character design work, so I'm not losing my illustration side that I built up. I've also never had an illustration class, just FYI. Like, I just kind of learned and taught myself. I mean, you know, there's this myth that, you know, designers and artists are super talented people. And I'm not saying people aren't talented, because they definitely do have talents, but it's not this magical thing. Like, you have to work on it all the time. Like, you have to love it. You have to practice. You have to get better. And that goes for not just like getting better in Photoshop or the program, but also like developing your eye and developing your hand, your sense of color, like all of those things. Like, you get more sophisticated over time when you really work on it. But yeah, I still have my side hustle going, and I'm excited I'm starting to create more digital download products. So digital products that you can just download, like printables or these portrait builders that I'm working on, which are pretty cool. I've made them in PowerPoint so that anyone can use them. Like, you don't have to be a designer. You can literally just copy and paste and then drag and drop, you know, basically a look-alike, and create like a print or a card. Like, it's perfect for Christmas cards or anything like that. It's also a great gift. Like, if you wanted to give something to your mom and you're like, oh, here's our little family, and, you know, you can design your own family. So that's stuff I'm working on now that is kind of on the side. But anyway, thank you for listening. I hope this wasn't too much of a rant, but I just kind of wanted to explain that you really don't have to go to art school, and my path certainly wasn't like that. I mean, I did go to school. I'm not saying you don't need any education, but I'm just saying, like, don't go into insane student debt because you think that art school is going to make you a famous artist or something like that, or that it's even going to pay that well. Also, don't go to grad school. Like, don't do it. Don't do it. Unless you can get like a scholarship or something where you're basically going for free, then absolutely go. Like, that's great. Start working, though. You learn so much more by working, taking jobs, trying things. Just do it. All right, that's my 2 cents. Thanks, guys. See you next time.